Denise Tawwab. I'm coming to you today to discuss the risk. Okay. Good morning, everybody. This is Denise Tawwab. I'm coming to you today to talk about the NIST Risk Management Framework. And today we're going to discuss step one of the NIST Risk Management Framework as outlined in NIST Special Publication 837, Revision 2. Step one in that process talks about how to prepare at the organizational level to implement the risk management framework. Step one was added in Rev 2. It was not in earlier versions of 837. And this is a pivotal change to the organization that I really, really like. But starting out, you prepare at the organization level, and then you prepare at the system level. So step one is sort of a two-pronged process. So in this video, I'm going to talk about preparing at the organization level, and then I'll record one on how to prepare at the system level. So let's get started. What we're going to cover is the purpose of the prepare step, and then I'll take the 7 tasks in the organization level preparation step, and I'll cover each one of those tasks because step one, the way 837 is set up, you have the steps, and within each step of the process, you have a set of tasks. Within the prepare at the organization level step, there are 7 tasks. All right, the purpose of the prepare step. The purpose is to carry out essential activities at the organization, mission, business process, and the system level to help prepare your organization to manage security and privacy risk using the NIST risk management framework. First up, the 7 prepare tasks outlined on this slide. You have task P1, which is your risk management roles. P2, your risk management strategy. Task 3, you do a risk assessment at the organization level. P4, you do your tailored control baseline. P5, you identify your common controls. P6, you prioritize impact levels. And P7, continuous monitoring strategy. So we're going to talk about each one of those in turn. And if you'll notice in Rev 2 of 837, NIST changed the way it numbers your task. Instead of just 1, 2, 3, it puts an alphabetic identifier at the front. So prepare tasks start out as P1, P2, P3, all the way through P18, I believe. So that's what you're seeing when you hear me say P1, P2, and then your other task will have a different alphabet at the beginning, of course. All right, description of risk management roles. That is the first task in preparing at the organization level. Your risk management roles. This is where you identify and assign individuals to specific roles associated with security and privacy risk management. And I'm discussing privacy here because Rev 2 of 837 pulled privacy to the forefront. In prior versions, privacy was in Appendix J, I believe. The privacy controls were there, but the focus was only on security. So privacy has been moved to the forefront. So you'll hear me talking about privacy as well as supply chain risk management. All right, inputs to the risk management roles task include your security policies and procedures, your privacy policies and procedures, and the organization chart. This is where you assign who's going to do what. The expected output from this is a document that shows who has been assigned to what role in the risk management framework. The primary responsibility for this task is the head of your agency or your business, the chief information officer, and the senior agency official for privacy. So your chief privacy officer if you're a non-federal organization. Supporting roles are played by the authorizing official, the senior accountable official for risk management, also called the risk executive function, and the senior agency information security officer. All right, some things that you want to consider. You want to think about when you're assigning the risk management roles. These roles may include internal or external personnel. It depends on the skill set that you have within your organization. If you don't have everything in house, you may need to outsource some things. So keep that in mind. And there may be differences in naming conventions depending on how your organization is set up. So the roles may be named something differently. And also, there may be differences from one company to the other in how you assign specific responsibilities. In some organizations, one person may do many different things. In others, you have enough staff to, break it out so that it's set up so one person is only doing one thing. However you do it, though, what you want to be sure to think about is you want to make sure that you don't have conflicts of interest. Um, and I'll give you an example. An authorizing official can't also be the system owner for the system that he or she is going to authorize. So make sure that there are no conflicts of interest. You also want to be careful when you're combining security and privacy roles because the two disciplines require different expertise. And in some circumstances, the priorities actually compete. So consider those things when you're assigning your risk management roles. The basic risk management functions, however, are going to remain the same across all organizations. Some references that'll help you do this task are NIST Special Publication 800-160, and Appendix D of 837 itself describes the roles and responsibilities, and I'll also do a video on that. But look at Appendix D in 837, and it will give you a breakdown of all the roles and what each one of those roles is responsible for according to NIST. All right, the next task is task P2, your risk management strategy. Develop your risk management strategy. In this task, you establish a risk management strategy for the organization that includes a determination of risk tolerance. The inputs to this task would be your mission statement, any policies that you have at the organization level, your organizational risk assumptions, any constraints that are going to impact you, priorities and trade-offs. So this is where you're establishing at the organization level what the strategy is for managing privacy and security risk. The expected output from the risk management strategy task P2 is going to be the risk management strategy as well as a statement of risk tolerance at the organization level. The primary responsibility for this task belongs to the head of your organization, the CEO, or the head of the agency if we're talking about a federal organization. Again, supporting roles played by the risk executive function, the chief information officer, the chief security officer, and the chief privacy officer. So, some things you want to think about when you're doing the risk management strategy step. Risk tolerance is the level of risk that is acceptable to your organization, and it's going to affect all the components of the risk management process. It's going to directly impact the risk management decisions, and it's going to provide constraints on your risk management decisions. It's going to guide and inform risk-based decisions, including how your organization plans to frame, assess, respond to, and monitor security and privacy risk. It explicitly states the threats your organization faces, any assumptions around how you're going to handle risk, any constraints that you face, priorities, trade-offs, and risk tolerance that's going to be used in making investment and operational decisions going forward. So you have to give this a lot of thought. It also includes the strategic level decisions and considerations for how security, privacy, and supply chain risk are going to be managed in your organization. So, what's included in the risk management strategy? Again, your organizational risk tolerance, acceptable risk assessment models. So, this is where you decide at the organization level how risk assessment is going to be handled in your organization and by the different business units. You'll include acceptable risk response strategies and a process for consistently evaluating the security, privacy, and supply chain risk across your organization with respect to the risk tolerance. And will also include how you're going to approach risk monitoring over time. When you're coming up with your risk management strategy, let me just reiterate, you want to include supply chain risk management considerations as you define and implement your policies and procedures. The risk management strategy for security and privacy is going to link the security and privacy programs with the management control systems that are going to be established in your enterprise risk management strategy. OMB Circular A-123 discusses some of this. It's the publication management's responsibility for enterprise risk management and internal control. All right, some publications that you can reference. NIST 830, which talks about how to do risk assessments, 839, which is the risk management process, and this is going to be at the organization level. 800 and NIST Report 8062, which is your privacy engineering and risk management documentation. Okay, so you do your you assign your risk management roles in task 1. In task 2, you develop your risk management strategy. In task 3, you're going to do an actual risk assessment at the organization level. This is where you assess organization-wide security and privacy risk and update the results on an ongoing basis. Potential inputs to the risk assessment task include your risk management strategy, current threat information, system level risk assessment results will roll up into your organization risk management. Your organization risk assessment, any information sharing agreements and MOUs that you have that will impact the level of risk. The expected output is going to be the organization level risk assessment results. The person responsible for this task, primary responsibility belongs to the risk executive function, to the chief information security officer, or to the chief privacy official. Supporting roles will be played by the CIO, the authorizing official, and the authorizing official designated representative. All right, some things to consider when you're doing your risk assessment. The risk assessment at the organization level is based primarily on aggregated information from your system level risk assessment results, any continuous monitoring that you're doing, and strategic risk considerations that are relevant to your organization. You want to consider the totality of risk derived from the operation and use of the information systems that you have and from any information exchange and connections with other systems. For example, you may review risk related to your enterprise architecture and information systems of different impact levels that reside on the same network, and whether higher impact systems are sufficiently segregated from lower impact systems. So those are the kinds of things that you want to be thinking about. When you're doing your risk assessment, some reference documents include NIST Special Publication 830, NIST Special Publication 839, which again is the risk management process, and you want to look at at all 3 levels. 800 and then NIST 8062, again your privacy engineering document. Okay, so you assign roles, come up with a risk management strategy, done your organization level risk assessment, and now you're ready to develop your tailored control baselines. This is an organizationally tailored control baselines. So let's get into it. All right, in task P4, you establish, document, and publish organization-wide tailored control baselines and or profiles if you're doing the cybersecurity framework. And we're not really going to discuss that in this video, but know that that's also part of 837 Rev 2. Inputs to your control baseline tailoring step is going to be your documented stakeholder protection needs and the security and privacy requirements. Any laws, executive orders, directives, policy standards that impact the controls that you need to use, your organization and your system level risk assessment results, and the NIST 853 control baselines. And remember, NIST Special Publication 853 is the control catalog for security and privacy controls. And they have baselines, low, moderate, and high impact systems for low, moderate, and high impact systems. And so you're going to pull your initial baseline from 853. The output from this task is going to be a list of mandated, tailored, organization approved baselines. And if you're doing the cybersecurity framework, then your NIST cybersecurity framework profiles. Responsibility for your control baselines belongs to the mission or business owner, the senior accountable official for risk management, also called the risk executive function. Okay, things you want to consider. I've got 4 slides of things that you want to think about when you're developing your control baselines for the organization. If your organization needs a specialized set of controls, you can develop tailored control baselines for use across the organization. A tailored control baseline that's designed for a community of a specific community is called an overlay. So you're developing an overlay for your organization, one or more overlays for your organization. Tailored baselines provide a fully specified set of controls, control enhancements, and supplemental guidance derived from established control baselines described in 853. When you're tailoring, what you do is you take out controls that you don't need and you add in controls that your organization needs to customize the security controls for your organization. Some tailoring example situations would be when you need you have specific security and privacy risk, you have specific business needs, or you've got an environment of operation that's not addressed in the initial baseline. All right, tailored baselines complement the initial controls, the initial 853 control baselines by giving you an opportunity to add or eliminate controls to accommodate requirements within your organization while continuing to protect the information in a way that is commensurate with risk, which is what the risk management framework is all about. Um, your organization can use the tailored baselines to customize control baselines by describing the control applicability and providing interpretations for specific technologies, different types of missions, operation systems, operating modes, or operating environments, and any regulatory or statutory requirements that your organization is going to face. You also want to establish parameter values for assignment or selection statements in your controls. I don't know how much experience you've had with 853, but a lot of the controls have parameters where you have to decide the value. For instance, your continuing monitoring, one of the continuous monitoring control, you have to establish how frequently your organization is going to do continuous monitoring. So a lot of the controls have parameters that you have to specify, and it's more efficient for your organization if those parameters are specified at the organization level and then passed down to the business and to the system level. Organization-wide tailored baselines may be more or less stringent than the 853 baselines, depending on your organization, and can be applied to multiple systems once you define those baselines. Tailored baselines may be mandated for use by certain laws, executive orders, policies, standards, regulations. A case in point is 800 which is all about protecting controlled unclassified information. That is a tailored baseline. And so, in some situations, your tailoring actions may be restricted or limited by the developer of the tailored baseline or by the issuing authority for the tailored baseline. Again, 800 protecting controlled unclassified information. That baseline has been specified for a particular use, and you can't just go in there and snatch stuff out of it. So indeed an overlay, but you don't have the authority to modify it. So you could be limited in that way. Tailored baselines or overlays have been developed by communities of interest for cloud and shared systems, for industrial control systems, national security systems, weapons and space based systems, high value assets, mobile device management, and federal public key infrastructure. And there are many other overlays, but that's just a sample of some that do exist already. Many of the tasks in preparing your organization can serve as inputs to your NIST cybersecurity framework profile if you're doing that. I'm not going to drill down into that just in the interest of time. All right, when you're doing your baselines, the documents you're going to need 853, 800 160, Volume 1, and you're going to be looking at mission or business analysis and stakeholder needs and and the requirements definition processes. And if you're doing the cybersecurity framework, you want to look at profiles. All right, we're 4 steps into a 7-step we're 4 tasks into a 7-task process of step 1, preparing your organization. Step 5 is where you identify your common controls. In step 5, you identify, document, and publish organization-wide common controls that are available for inheritance by organizational systems. The inputs to identifying your common controls would include, again, your documented stakeholder protection needs and stakeholder security and privacy requirements, any existing common control providers and their associated system security and privacy plans, information security and privacy program plans for your organization, and your organization and system level risk assessment results. The expected output from your common control identification step would be a list of common control providers and the common controls that are available for inheritance, and security and privacy plans that provide a description of the common control implementation, including inputs, expected behavior, and expected outputs. The primary responsibility for identifying your common controls belongs to the Senior Agency Information Security Officer and the Senior Agency Official for Privacy. So, your Chief Security Officer and your Chief Privacy Officer. They come up with the common controls. Of course, they um, are collaborating with the supporting roles of the mission or business owner, the risk executive function, the Chief Information Officer, the authorizing official, common control providers, and system owners. All right, when you're identifying your common controls, keep in mind that your common controls are controls that can be inherited by one or more information systems in the organization. They can include controls from any of the 853 control families. What you're going to do is identify and select the set of common controls, and you're going to allocate those controls to the organization entities designated as common control providers. So somebody is going to be the provider for those common controls. Common controls may differ based upon a number of factors such as hosting location, system architecture, and the structure of your organization. The list of common controls should, of course, take these factors into account. Common controls can also be identified at different levels of the organization, including, for example, corporate, department, bureaus, or individual program level. You may establish one or more list of common controls that can be inherited by the systems in the organization. So you don't have to have just one big list. You can have several different lists, but anytime you're providing common controls that are inheritable, then you want to have a list of those and make those available to the business and system owners. When there are multiple sources of common controls, you specify the common control provider, that is, who is providing the controls and through what venue, for example, shared services, specific systems, or within a specific type of architecture, and also which systems or types of systems can inherit those controls. Common control listings are communicated to system owners so that they are aware of the security and privacy capabilities that are available from the organization through inheritance. System owners are not required to assess common controls that are inherited by their systems, nor are they required to document common control implementation details as you would in a system security plan. That's going to be the responsibility of the common control providers. Likewise, your common control providers are not required to have visibility into the system level details of the systems that inherit the common controls that they are providing. So, as a common control user, I don't have to document all the implementation details. I'm going to get those from the common control provider, and the common control provider does not need to know all the details of my system. They're just going to give me what I need to inherit and implement the inherited controls. I hope that made sense. Your risk assessment results can be used when identifying the common controls to determine if the controls that are available for inheritance will meet the security and privacy requirements, um, including identifying potential single points of failure. When the common controls provided by your organization are deemed to be insufficient for a system inheriting those controls, then the system owner can still inherit those controls, but then supplement them with additional controls, with system specific or hybrid controls to achieve the required protection level for their system. Or the system owner can accept greater risk with the acknowledgement and approval of the organization. So if you get some controls. If you inherit a common control and it's not quite what you need, it's considered deficient, then you supplement that control. Or you accept the greater risk, but you document that you've accepted that risk and you make sure that the organization is aware that you've accepted that risk. Common control providers are going to execute the steps in the risk management framework to implement, assess, and monitor the controls that are designated as common controls. They may also be system owners when the common controls reside within their information system. The senior official for privacy is going to be responsible for designating common privacy controls and for documenting them in the organization's privacy program plan. Authorizing officials are going to be responsible for accepting security and privacy risks that result from the use of common controls inherited by the different systems in your organization. Okay, common control providers, what are they responsible for? They're responsible for documenting common controls in security and privacy plans, for ensuring that the controls are implemented and assessed for effectiveness by qualified assessors, for ensuring that the assessment findings are documented in security and privacy um, assessment reports, for producing a plan of action and milestone for common controls that are determined to have unacceptable deficiencies and have been targeted for remediation, for receiving authorization for the common controls from the designated authorizing official. And the common control provider is responsible for monitoring the effectiveness of those controls on an ongoing basis. So that's what the common control provider is responsible for. Plans, assessment reports, and POAMs, plans of action and milestones for common controls, or a summary of that information, is made available to each system owner and can be used by the authorizing official to inform the authorization decisions for systems that inherit the common controls. For common control identification, task P5, the document that you're going to use is 853. All right, task P6. This is an optional task. It is your impact level prioritization. This is where you prioritize systems with the same impact level. So, say you've got two um, moderate impact level systems, you've got two high level impact systems, whatever's happening in your organization, you have systems. When you categorize them, they have the same impact level: low, medium, low, moderate, or high. Well, somebody has to make a decision about, okay, which one of these systems do we prioritize? If we must, if we don't have the resources to do everything on all the systems, which one of these systems will we prioritize? The inputs to this task, task P6, is the system categorization information for all of your systems in the organization, descriptions of the systems, and your organization and system level risk assessment results. The expected output from this particular task is your organization systems prioritized into low, moderate, and high impact subcategories. The primary responsibility for this task belongs to the risk executive function. Of course, you'll get help from the chief information security officer, the chief privacy officer, the chief information officer, and your authorizing official. Impact level prioritization is carried out only after all systems have been categorized, and this is in step 2 of the risk management framework as is outlined in Rev 2. This task requires you to apply the high water mark concept to each of your information systems categorized in keeping with FIPS 199. Applying the high water mark concept results in systems that are designated as low impact, moderate impact, or high impact. If you're desiring additional granularity in your impact designations when you're making your risk-based decisions, then you can use this particular task to prioritize your systems into 3 new subcategories: low moderate systems, moderate systems, and high moderate systems. This prioritization of moderate systems gives your organization a chance to make more informed decisions about control selection and the tailoring of control baselines when responding to identified risk. A special note, your organization can also use this task in conjunction with the optional risk management framework um, task 4 to develop tailored baselines for the more granular impact designations. That probably made no sense. I'm going to just keep moving. Impact level prioritization can also be used to determine those systems that are critical to your missions and your business operations. These are also known as your high value assets. And you can then focus on the important factors of complexity, aggregation, and system interconnections. Your high value systems can be identified, for example, by prioritizing your high impact systems into low high systems, moderate high, and high systems. Impact level prioritizations can be conducted at any level of the organization and are based on the information system categorization data reported by your individual system owners. When you're doing this impact level prioritization step, you can look at FIPS 199, 830, NIST Special Publication 830, 39, 59, 60, Volume 1, 800, 160, and for National Security System, CNSS instruction 1253. All right, finally, we get to the last task in step 1 of the risk management framework where you prepare task. We get to the last organization level task. That's your continuous monitoring strategy. In this task, you develop and implement an organization-wide strategy for continuously monitoring the effectiveness of your controls. The inputs to this continuous monitoring strategy is going to be your risk management strategy, your system and organization level risk assessment results, and your security and privacy policies. The expected output is an implemented organizational continuous monitoring strategy. The responsibility for this belongs to the risk executive function and also the senior agency official for privacy. Supporting roles, of course, are your CIO, your senior agency information security officer, your mission or business owner, the system owner, and the authorizing officials. All right, things to consider when you're developing your continuous monitoring strategy. An important aspect of risk management is the ability to monitor the effectiveness of your controls. Um, the continuous monitoring strategy is essential to efficiently and cost effectively carrying out such monitoring. Continuous monitoring strategies can also include supply chain risk considerations, for example, requiring that suppliers are audited on an ongoing basis. All right, implementing a robust and comprehensive continuous monitoring program will help your organization understand the security and privacy postures of your information systems over time. and also maintain the initial system or common control authorizations. So you've got two things. You want to always know the security and privacy posture of your systems, and you also want to maintain your authorization. This will include the potential for changing mission, business functions, technologies, vulnerabilities, threats, risk, and suppliers of systems, components, or services. The continuous monitoring strategy addresses monitoring requirements at the organization level, the mission business process level, and the information system level. The continuous monitoring strategy also identifies the minimum frequency of your monitoring for implemented controls across the organization, and it defines the control assessment approach. It also defines security and privacy reporting requirements, including who the recipients of those reports um, are going to be. And for greater efficiency, the information security continuous monitoring and privacy continuous monitoring strategies may be consolidated into a unified continuous monitoring strategy. So you can combine security monitoring and privacy monitoring into one strategy, or you can have single a continuous privacy monitoring strategy and a continuous security monitoring strategy. Just depends on how your organization wants to handle that information. The criteria for determining the minimum frequency with which controls are going to be monitored post implementation is established in collaboration with the different officials in your organization that manage systems that are responsible for risk. Your risk assessment results can be used to guide and inform the frequency of monitoring, and the use of automation is going to facilitate a greater frequency and volume of control assessments as part of the monitoring process. So if it's automated, you can do it more often, and you can do it more frequently, and you can do it more easily. The ongoing monitoring of controls using automated tools and supporting databases facilitates near real time risk management for information systems and supports ongoing authorization and more efficient use of resources. Keep in mind that Rev 2 and the risk management framework itself is encouraging organizations to move toward automation and to position themselves so that they can do ongoing authorizations. The senior accountable official for risk management or the risk executive function approves the continuous monitoring strategy, including the minimum frequency with which you're going to monitor the controls. When you're developing your continuous monitoring strategy, you want to look at 830, 839, 853, 853A, 800 800 which is all about continuous monitoring strategy, and 800 And that and those are the 7 steps for preparing your organization at the organization level to implement the risk management framework. Task P1, your risk management roles. Task P2, create your risk management strategy. P3, do an organization level risk assessment. Task P4, create your tailored control baselines at the organization level. Task P5, identify your common controls. Task P6, do your impact level prioritizations. And task P7, develop your continuous monitoring strategy. The next video will look at the prepare task at the system level. And if you look at the task numbering, it starts at P8 and goes through P18. There are 11 tasks. Your mission business focus, system stakeholders, identify assets, authorization boundaries, information types, the information life cycle, risk assessment at the system level, requirements definition, your enterprise architecture, your requirements allocation, and system registration. So we'll talk about these in the next video. Thank you so much for joining. I hope this information was helpful. Please subscribe. Please like if you like. Please leave any comments that you have and any questions, and I'll take a look and get back with you as soon as possible. Have a great day.